Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Unexpected Friends. This will be Part 2, Chapter 2, entitled Training Time. It was a joint training day for 1A and 1B. They were going to the training area outside. As the two classes gathered on the outskirts of the area, Monoma and Midoriya saw each other and gave each other a small wave that no one had caught. All right. Today, each of you will partner up with another student from the other class. Randomly, you'll be chosen to be in 2 versus 2 battles. You're choosing who you are to partner up with. You have 5 minutes. Go. Some who had a few friends in the other class were able to partner up easily. Kendo teased Monoma on how he should have been friendlier to Class 1A. He just brushed her off and began to walk towards Midoriya. The green boy saw him and also walked towards the other. Partner up? Monoma asked with a soft smirk. Midoriya nodded happily. There was a small moment of silence before someone finally spoke up. Since when are you willing to talk to anyone in 1A? It seemed like she was voicing everyone's thoughts, as some also showed their confusion. Monoma looked at Midoriya quickly before turning to look at the others and gave a sly smirk. None of your business. Before any more questions could be asked, the teachers called time, and they gathered around as their first battle pair-ups were selected. Once they were told the battle matchups, they were given a few minutes to strategize. Monoma and Midoriya jumped straight into strategizing once they were given the chance. Most partners were whispering or making sure they were too far away from their opponents to be heard, but Midoriya and Monoma were sounding too incoherent. Class 1A was used to Midoriya's constant mumbling, but no one could understand him. They thought if anyone would be able to understand the boy, that it might have been Bakugo, due to the fact that they grew up together. But the blonde didn't care enough to ever become fluent in the shorter boy's language. Monoma, on the other hand, understood Midoriya perfectly, because he did care what he had to say. Not only did he care about it, but he added on to it. He put his full attention to the other, and that in its own way was a weapon of their own. They had actually only used up half of the planning time, and just began casually chatting. Midoriya whispered something into Monoma's ear, which caused the latter to let out a small laugh that was covered by his hand. Those who saw the interaction were shocked. They were questioning how close the two were. They had never seen the two ever hang out before this training session, and last time they checked, Monoma never wanted to be around anyone from 1A. Kendo couldn't hold back her curiosity anymore. She told Momo, who was her partner, to wait 1 second before walking towards the pair that was still joking around. All I'm saying, there has to be a possibility to accidentally shoot someone but purposefully aim for the leg, Monoma stated. But how would that play in court? Midoriya laughed a little, just thinking about it. Yeah, just think about it. Your Honor, I know that I was holding the gun, and that it was pointing towards him, and my bad, but hey, I didn't kill him. Kendo may have only caught a small part of the conversation, but she was already thinking up more questions. She didn't know if she wanted to know how the conversation even got started. Hello, Midoriya, Kendo greeted once she was finally in front of them. The boy waved back before giving a small greeting of his own. So, since when have you been friends with Monoma? She asked him. Monoma caught on to what she was doing, but he didn't seem fazed one bit. Oh, an amount of time, Midoriya answered. Kendo turned her head towards the light blonde, a bit irritated. Monoma gave off a sly smirk and shrugged. You've corrupted him, haven't you? She accused. I've done no such thing. He's taken my advice of his own free will. Midoriya, tell me what he's been telling you. Words that have been put into sentences. And that's all the evidence Kendo needed for her corruption theory to be true. She quickly smacked Monoma upside the head. Hey! That's what you get for ruining an innocent child. Monoma raised his eyebrow at the statement before turning to look at Midoriya. He knew that the boy was, at default, incredibly kind, but he also had been friends with Bakugo, who probably taught him more sinful things. Monoma didn't see a problem with getting Midoriya to be a little sassy in his responses. Due to how kind the boy was, he knew that he had been easily picked on. He saw no harm in letting him learn to stand up for himself verbally. Midoriya, on the other hand, was confused about how to respond to the fact that he was called innocent. Once Monoma shot him a glance, he shrugged. How was he to respond? Bakugo had yelled too many things at him for his mind to be considered clean. Sure, he wasn't dirty-minded, but if someone said something that wasn't PG-13, he would understand. Thanks for the concern, Kendo, but he's done no such thing. Midoriya placed a hand on Monoma's shoulder. Besides, in terms of advice, there are much worse people to give that out. Wait, did you just insult me while backing me up? Midoriya gave Monoma an innocent-looking smile. Me? Never. Kendo decided to just leave it at that. The two seemed like they were genuine friends, and if she was being honest, she felt that Monoma needed to laugh more without him loudly mocking a group of people. Soon enough, it was time to begin the training battles. They went on mostly how one expects. Kaminari fried his brain at one point, Todoroki looked like he didn't care enough, Kendo and Momo used their strategizing skills, and so on. After a while, it was Monoma and Midoriya's turn. Their opponents were Bakugo and Tetsu. They entered the battleground. Bakugo yelled his usual insults at Midoriya, to which Monoma insulted him back. "Who asked you, extra?" Bakugo yelled, further angered. "We'll see who is truly the extra." They face each other on the opposing end, and Aizawa calls for the match to begin. Bakugo and Tetsu launched at the other two, the former more literally. Yet, with the oncoming attack, they barely moved. Midoriya only activated his quirk and stayed where he stood. "Mocking me, nerd!" The next movements were to happen quickly if Midoriya was to come out uninjured. Bakugo was inches from the green boy's face, and his hand was reddening to release an explosion. That's when Midoriya moved. He grabbed Bakugo's arm and pointed it towards the ground. The explosion was released, and the ground broke. The dust from the attack was a dense fog in which it was hard to see more than a few inches from the face. The other students watching were stunned, as they became enthralled by the match and wished that they could see more clearly what was happening. Tetsu felt a light touch on his shoulder. He turned around quickly to try and hit his opponent, with his quirk, but hit only air. Bakugo was still, as he tried to hear if anyone came close to him. "Bakugo, where are you?" Tetsu called out, as the two were still apart from each other. "Idiot," he whispered under his breath. The other had just given away his location, but before he could think up a plan, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Tag. His eyes widened as he realized who it was. He tried to hit the other blonde, but failed to do it quickly enough. "Detroit Smash, 1%! They heard Midoriya yell, and the dust began to clear as they felt a strong wind pass them. Finally, they could see where they were again. They all sprung into action, Monoma going after Bakugo, Midoriya going after Tetsu. Once Monoma got close enough to Bakugo, he put his hand out as to ready an explosion. "You may have my quirk, but you aren't as strong," Bakugo yelled before releasing a huge explosion. Bakugo didn't have time to defend, as he felt an explosion push him out of bounds. "Bakugo is out," a teacher announced. "Wait, what the fuck?" he called out in annoyance that he had lost. On Midoriya's end, he was going hand-to-hand combat with the metal boy. Once Tetsu heard that his partner was out, he lost focus for a quick second. Midoriya saw this and quickly made a downwards peace sign out of his opponent's eyesight. Once the boy refocused, he began to hit harder. Another explosion was released towards the ground, causing another cloud of dust. Midoriya seemed to disappear into the dust as he backed away. The gray boy went forward to try to follow. Once he saw a vague figure, he went for the hit. What he didn't expect was for the sound of metal hitting metal to ring out. He quickly began to put the puzzle pieces together. "Detroit Smash, 3%, was all he heard before he was hit out of the arena. Tetsu was out. Midoriya and Monoma win. The two stepped out of the dust cloud, a proud smile on Midoriya's face, and an iconic smirk on Monoma's. "That was so quick, and amazing, and flawless. There's no way Monoma could work that well with anyone in 1A. Midoriya and Monoma high-fived. They knew that their plan had to be a quick one, but they didn't know that it would actually work as they had multiple backup plans. As more and more people voiced their thoughts, Bakugo began to angrily walk towards the two, fuming. Monoma signaled that he was going to the side, and walked away as he began to pull out his phone. "Hey, Deku, since when have you become buddy-buddy with the copycat?" he said, irritated. "It happened a while ago, Kachan." Midoriya began slowly to back away from the fuming boy. "Oh, so now you think you're cool being all secretive, 'cause guess what, nerd? You're not." As Bakugo continued insulting the poor boy, Monoma pressed the record button on his phone camera. He looked up to Midoriya and gave a slight nod. "And don't you dare think that you're starting to be better than me." "I'm not saying anything by it, Bakugo." Midoriya tried to defend. "Hey, my name is Kachan to you, nerd." As if someone had pressed a pause button, Bakugo stood still for a moment, as he processed what he had just said. Midoriya, on the other hand, began to slowly walk away, so as not to startle him back into reality and his possible death. "Fuck! You all didn't hear anything. I don't care what the stupid nerd calls me," he yelled before running after Midoriya. "Come back here, Deku." And the chase began. "What did I do?" Midoriya managed to say as he hid behind the sea of students. He knew the Bakugo wouldn't dare harm them all to get to him. A low tactic, it may be, but he also wanted to live. "Well, you, Bakugo could only stammer, as he couldn't think of a response. Who was he to defend what he had just said and keep up whatever image he thought he gave off? He decided to just scoff and walk, more like stomp, away. The green boy gave a sigh of relief and thanked the others for being his cover. Kirishima and Kaminari were trying to cover their laughter. Monoma walked up to Midoriya's side. "I have the video, and it is glorious." He showed it to Midoriya, and it was hard to not laugh as he could finally see Bakugo's reaction clearly. "Have you sent it to the group chat yet? Shinso's gonna love this. I honestly didn't think Katon would have such a big reaction." "I'm sending it right now. Once Hatsume sees what it is, she might actually take a break." "Now that's something I would like to see." The teacher finally called for them to go back into the building to change back into their uniform, as their class was to begin soon. They said their goodbyes and left. After a couple of minutes, they finally filed into the classroom and took their seats to continue class as normal. As Midoriya made his way to his seat, Kirishima called out to him. "Dude, that fight was so awesome. I can't believe you actually managed to befriend Monoma. I honestly never thought that he would be willing to talk normally to anyone in the class. You really can befriend almost anyone, so manly." Midoriya awkwardly thanked him. Then he got a notification on his phone. He looked to see who it was. Shinso had texted back, "Aw, he does have a soft spot." That message was instantly followed by, "I'll keep this as blackmail material, just in case," sent by Hatsume. The boy let out a small laugh before texting back, "You better not. It would do me more harm than good." He went to sit down at his desk, so as not to awkwardly be standing while he was texting. "Worst comes to worst, we'll hide you," Hatsume offered. Monoma finally joined in. "Besides, it wouldn't hurt that much to have something against him." Shinso texted, "We'll only threaten him with it." "All right, fine. I gotta get back to class, and shouldn't you all be too?" Midoriya sent before putting away his phone as Aizawa began to walk in. They were going over each match to analyze them and put in any necessary or possible improvements each person could have made. After a while, they got to Kaminari's match, in which it was once again pointed out that the electric boy had ended up frying himself. There was more teasing than advice being given to him. Midoriya did try to help by saying that learning more hand-to-hand combat would help because it's easier for him to cover himself with electricity. "Yeah, then maybe we wouldn't have to drag him around after just one attack." "Hey, I'm doing what I can," Kaminari tried to defend. Aizawa shut them up after that so they could get back on track. Finally getting to Midoriya's match, Bakugo only scowled as they began to talk about it. A bit of smoke arose from his hand. "Midoriya and Monoma had clearly planned it out thoroughly, and luckily there were no hitches in their plan," Momo stated. "But I do have to ask, Midoriya, what if one part of your plan hadn't gone correctly?" "Oh, we had actually made a handful of backup plans. We didn't think that Plan A was going to go too smoothly, but it was nice that it did." "So you're saying that Bakugo wasn't smart enough to even mess up your plan a little?" Kirishima was impressed with Midoriya. Well, Midoriya had obviously chosen someone he could work well with, even if we thought it was an unexpected choice. They were both synced in their attacks, unlike Bakugo and Tetsutetsu, Ida pointed out as he pushed up his glasses. They continued to look more into the teamwork differences between the two pair-ups, Sero saying that the main reason behind the fact that Bakugo paired up with Tetsutetsu was how alike he was to Kirishima. Bakugo hadn't said a word, and that began to scare Midoriya. Seeing the other two quiet was nerve-wracking. His suspicions were confirmed once the blonde exploded with rage. "So Deku is all cool now that he beat me one time. He's gone and befriended that weird extra from 1B, so what? He's still a loser." Bakugo had shot up from his desk, which had only made Midoriya try to shrink down a bit. "Bakugo, sit down," Aizawa commanded. Bakugo rolled his eyes before sitting back down. Midoriya let go of the breath he had been holding, and with that, the day's classes had ended. The now-named Quirk nerds had been planning to study for their next exam later that day in an empty classroom. Monoma had volunteered his classroom, as he knew no one would be using it. Hitoshi, Kachan looked like he was ready to murder anyone that said even one more word about it, Midoriya explained, as they were walking towards the classroom. He had gone to grab a few snacks with the other to eat during their study session. Are you saying that winning was a bad thing? No, it's not that. It's just that he seemed so angry at the way that he lost, I guess. Maybe he wasn't expecting the battle to turn out like it did and was upset that he was caught off guard. They opened the door to the classroom and saw that Monoma and Hatsume had put 4 desks together for them. Quickly putting down the snacks that they had and pulling out their notebooks, they began discussing the prompts they had been given. Their quick-paced conversation launched into action. It was getting late, and they decided it was time to begin to put away their stuff. Most of the snacks were gone. Monoma brought up the Kachan incident again, to which they all laughed about. I thought that a reaction would happen, just not one that big, Hatsume said. Shinso nodded as he pulled up the video for them to see one more time. My name is Kachan to you, nerd. That line was all it took for them to double over in laughter. Monoma patted Izuku on the back, and he couldn't hold back the joy the scenario had brought him. Hatsume reminded him that it would be used as blackmail material when needed. She wasn't about to leave her friends without backup. Izuku, mark my words, I will get into the hero course, and the first thing I do when I see him is going to be to make him say, my name is Kachan. Shinso manages to say, after his laughter had calmed down. As much as I would like to see that, I would also like to live. If anyone can be a witness to Kachan's anger, it's Nato. Monoma agreed with Midoriya, as he had seen the explosive boy take out his anger on Midoriya many times. Kendo actually blamed me today for corrupting Izuku. So what if he's beginning to grow backbone a bit? He needs to stand up for himself, Monoma complained. Wait, she really called you out? You're right about Izuku needing to toughen up a bit when it comes to his peers, Hatsume agreed. Guys, I'm right here, you know. We know, Shinso teased. They finished cleaning up and were about to leave before Shinso stopped them. So, the thing I mentioned earlier about getting into the hero course, well, let's just say Aizawa has agreed to teach me personally. As soon as he finished speaking, they congratulated him. They had been already helping him to train and to try to make it in the hero course, but for him to actually get a hero to train him was almost the guarantee. Midoriya and Monoma tried all they could to help him, but when it came to it, they could only help by strengthening him in combat. Hatsume had been making some support gear for Shinso to help with his quirk and in combat. He saw potential in you, Hitoshi. You'll be joining the hero course in no time, Monoma encouraged. But who will they be kicking out? Hatsume asked, raising an eyebrow. Probably Mineta. He's been harassing the girls too much, and so I don't think that the choice would be too difficult, Midoriya stated. They began to walk out of the classroom and eventually out of the building. They continued to talk about Shinso making his way into the hero course until they had to part ways. They did make sure to schedule another training session with Shinso for that weekend. The next few weeks were filled with long hours of training and Hatsume testing out more support gear on Shinso than the boy could handle. Monoma and Midoriya barely tried to hide their laughter as they watched their friend become a lab rat to Mei. They had already been through the same treatment and felt that it was just to take a break by watching Shinso's misery instead. They both knew that it wouldn't last too long, though. Shinso had gotten a capture weapon just like Aizawa, and he said that he was fine with that, but Hatsume was having none of that. She kept making him try out different weapons. Mei, don't you think this is going overboard? Shinso said, holding a bow staff in his hands. She smacked him upside the head. Look, you need to learn more ways to defend yourself if you want to be a hero. Besides, you know Izuku and Nato have also been trying new weapons. The problem with Nato is getting it to work with his quirk, but how do you get an ever-changing quirk to work with one type of weapon? Well, you don't. Midoriya has been trying too, but his quirk tends to damage almost every weapon he has tried to wield, so until I can get the pair of Eskrima sticks that'll handle more than a few uses, he's stuck using them at a very limited strength. But with you have more freedom to choose, so stop complaining. Shinso groaned before trying out the bow staff, by spinning it and hitting the air. It turned out that he actually liked using the staff. All right, we're finally getting somewhere. Izuku, it's time, Hatsume said. Wait, time for what? Shinso was interrupted by Midoriya swinging an Eskrima stick at him. Shinso barely managed to block him before Midoriya tried to sweep his feet under him. Shinso kept trying to block Midoriya, but not for long, as Shinso felt a sharp pain in his side. Did you really have to do that? Shinso complained, to which Midoriya only smiled tauntingly. Hatsume congratulated Shinso on finding his weapon. "Hey, at least you didn't have to go up against a machine. I can still feel the bruises," Midoriya said, as Monoma walked over to hand them a water bottle. "Honestly, I keep telling May to just let me have a weapon to protect myself until I can copy someone's quirk," Monoma said. Hatsume reluctantly agreed, after all he had complained about it so many times that he did have a point. Waiting to find something that would fit him perfectly was going to take a while, which in turn would put him behind. "Hey, Shinso, any updates on when you'll be getting into the hero course?" Midoriya switched the topic. "Actually, Aizawa said that if I keep learning at this pace that I'll be able to join by the end of the month. I'm kinda nervous, actually. What if I mess up at the last minute and don't get in?" Shinso had always had his doubts, but it had never made him this nervous before. "You are going to get in, don't worry about that," Monoma told him. "Izuku, use your inspirational speech magic, 'cause everyone knows that I can't." "All right, look here, Shinso. I know that you're nervous and that it's making the words of doubt stronger right now, but you have come so far, and you've only tried harder with every test sent your way. We know that you can make it. If we didn't, would I and Nato help you train? Would May be making support gear for you? You're talented and have the heart of a hero. I have no doubt that by the end of this month you'll be getting in the hero course." Shinso seemed to stop working for a moment, as he took it all in. "Have you ever thought of being an inspirational speaker? 'Cause that was some true encouragement," Shinso finally managed to say. Monoma laughed a bit, as he had heard plenty of those uplifting speeches. They spent the rest of that evening just laughing and talking. There was a slight breeze that day, and it wasn't hot, just warm. Hatsume threw her arms over Monoma and Midoriya's shoulders, as she poked fun at them. Shinso and Hatsume made a deal that they would both get a few more hours of sleep next week. It was just another day. It seemed like Midoriya's speech worked, as when the last day of the month rolled around, Shinso was walking into Class 1A that morning. As the green boy had predicted, Mineta had been kicked out to make room for Shinso. His introduction was short, and he quickly made his way to his seat, which was luckily behind Midoriya. They gave each other a small smile before he sat down. Midoriya silently thanked that he didn't go through with his promise of controlling Bakugo. The class resumed as normal, and after going through their regular classes, it was finally training time. They quickly got into their gym uniforms and made their way outside. Today, they were to go at hand-to-hand combat without quirks. There were a handful that opposed the idea, and a few who looked like it was their time to shine. They were randomly paired up who they would be fighting. Midoriya was to go against Momo, and Shinso was to go against Kaminari. As the one-on-one battles began, Shinso was not ready for the chaotic energy that was 1A. As Bakugo yelled "die," and as Ida tried to keep everyone in check, he walked over to Midoriya to feel a bit of peace. "How do you handle this every day?" he asked Midoriya. "You know how many times I've broken my bones. I'm part of the chaos." "I can't argue with that. Hey, what can you tell me about Kaminari?" "You've seen him short-circuit before, so you already have that impression of him. He doesn't have many close combat skills, which are surprising considering that it would be a great help to him." Shinso nodded, as he watched Bakugo be thrown out of bounds by Kirishima. It was Midoriya's turn. Once the battle had begun, it seemed as if they were on equal ground. "The nerd is going to lose. He relies on the quirk of his to always give him the upper hand," Bakugo said. Shinso wanted to smack the blonde, but knew that it probably wouldn't be the best idea, so instead, he settled on glaring at the boy. Aizawa was not oblivious to the fact that Shinso and Midoriya were friends. He knew that Monoma and Hatsume were also a part of their little friend group. In fact, Shinso had told him that they had been helping him train. A few times while he was at school grading papers, he had seen them training. Midoriya didn't use his quirk when training with him as far as he knew, as he had not witnessed the boy using his quirk while battling his friends. Midoriya dodged another punch from Momo as he kept studying her fighting style. He was thinking quickly, as he didn't want Momo to have time to think on something before he did. That's when he saw an opening, and was able to unbalance Momo and flip her over his shoulder, making her go out of bounds. Whoa, sometimes I forget the raw strength that Midoriya has. Same, I guess Bakugo was wrong. "What did you extra say?" the blonde yelled, releasing a small explosion. Midoriya helped Momo up before telling her how amazing her fighting style was. She returned the compliments. It was Shinso's turn against Kaminari next. Midoriya wished him good luck. As they walked up to the battle area, Shinso saw a small hint of nervousness flash across Kaminari's face before it returned to a smile. If Shinso's heart skipped a beat seeing that smile, no one needed to know. The match began, and Shinso quickly noticed how Kaminari was very untrained in hand-to-hand combat. It didn't take long for the match to end, as Shinso pinned him down and was making sure the electric blonde was unable to move, making Shinso the winner. Shinso let him go. "That was amazing, Shinso. You must have trained a lot. You're really cool." Kaminari's smile was bright, and Shinso didn't know if it was due to the fight or something else that had his heart beat faster. Thanks, I guess," was the only reply he could muster. If his friends had heard him say that, they would be making fun of his socializing skills, which they knew were slim to none. They went back to stand by their friends to watch the remaining battles go down. Shinso became acquainted with Uraraka and Ida. They were calmer people than he had become used to being around. Shinso decided that he liked the chaos, and only the chaos of the Quirk nerds, but that was something to be kept to himself. After the rest of that day's classes, Midoriya and Shinso walked to their Quirk Theories class together. As soon as they opened the door to enter, Hatsume basically bombarded Shinso with questions about his day. Monoma and Midoriya did their best to calm her down, but they were only willing to do so much. "Yeah, I like this chaos much better," Shinso thought, as he answered Hatsume's questions. A few days after being in 1A, he had gotten used to the people. He watched how each of them trained and fought. He had gotten a device to manipulate his voice and had been having some time to really train in using it. Monoma had complained earlier that week about Midoriya getting Shinso in his class. He got over it quickly, as it was really only to poke fun. After school today, the Quirk nerds were planning on hanging out. As Kaminari had fried his brain during that day's training, Shinso started thinking about how Kaminari's quirk worked against his body. Kaminari didn't seem to be in any physical pain while using his quirk, so why did his brain fry after using his limit? Once the last class of the day ended, the Quirk nerds meet up at a park nearby just to relax for the evening. "Hey, have you ever wondered why Kaminari short-circuits after using his limit?" Shinso asked, once they have sat down. "Not really, to be honest. We don't talk much, so the topic isn't really in my mind, but it's a good question," Midoriya answered. "I thought it was because he uses too much electricity for his body to handle," Monoma pointed out. Hatsume started to get at what Shinso was trying to say. "Wait, I get what Hitoshi's trying to say. Kaminari already has that electricity stored in him, so why does his brain fry after using it to his limit?" "So you're saying that there could be another reason?" Monoma questioned. He was now really intrigued. Midoriya's face lit up as he thought of something. "Wait, doesn't the average human have electricity in their nervous system?" "I see what you're getting at. You're saying that his nervous system must be messed up when he hits his limit," Monoma added. "What if he doesn't have enough electricity left after using his limit for him to function properly? If he's just expelling all that electricity without thinking about how much he has left?" Shinso began to think. Hatsume was getting an idea. "We would have to test it out, but if that's the case, he would need a battery on him to jolt him back into a functioning person. The battery would have to be able to be unaffected or damaged by the electricity he's expelling." A wide smile grew on Hatsume's face. "Oh, this is going to be a fun project." They didn't know if they should stop Hatsume from doing whatever she was going to do to the poor boy, but if Kaminari was to improve, he would have to endure. Maybe they should have at least tried to simmer her down, as it was day 4 into Hatsume's tests, and Kaminari was currently on the floor, wishing for the sweet release of death. Shinso had told him about their theory behind his quirk and asked if he was willing to test it out. He had said yes, not knowing what he was getting into. He didn't know if he regretted this decision or not, because the number of tests that he had been put through was not a pro, in his opinion. "All right, let's take a break for now," Hatsume finally said. Shinso helped Kaminari up so he could get water. "When will the torture be over?" Kaminari whined. "I didn't think that I had agreed to my death." Shinso laughed softly before responding. "She won't kill you, promise, but I'm sorry that it's not the easiest thing to go through." "Thanks for helping me, Toshi. Now I know why Midoriya and Monoma are friends." "It's nothing, honestly." Kaminari looked into Shinso's eyes. "It's more than nothing. Everyone just teases me for going into my stupid mode, but you actually decided to help me. So I mean it, thanks." Shinso was semi-sure that he was imagining his heart skipping a beat. As if to save him from his awkwardness, Hatsume called the break over. After completing the last test of the day, Kaminari was free to go. Hatsume said that this would be the last of the tests, unless she needed something else. Kaminari was saying goodbye to them, but before leaving, he stopped by Shinso. "Hey, Toshi, if you want to, would you, like to hang out this weekend?" Kaminari asked. Shinso froze for a moment, but it seemed like an eternity. "Yeah, sure." "Cool, I'll text you." And with that, he left. As soon as the door closed behind Kaminari, he turned to his friends, who were wearing huge smiles. "Toshi, is it now?" Monoma had an evil look in his eye. Midoriya and Hatsume wore innocent smiles that were hiding something. Shinso knew this meant nothing good. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 2 of Unexpected Friends. Chapter 3 will be up next. I love this chapter so much. I love the prank that they pull on Bakugo. I thought that was so well done, and the fact that Kaminari is being brought into the friend group as well. So let me know your thoughts and reactions to this chapter, and as always, thank you all so much for listening.